What are
Because fanaticism and ignorance define you.
What is the nature of human action?
Good afternoon or evening. You are more human than you think. We are not a superior species. A lot of people think that because we have the likes of consciousness, language, and morality that we are. Our race, human, is not as distinct from other animals as one might think. Sadly, we're subject to being human beings, even though we don't notice it most of the time. So here's a couple of examples. Anthropomorphism. That is the ascribing of human characteristics to non-human entities. So when you say that your dog is embarrassed or your child plays with a teddy bear, that's anthropomorphism in action. You'll see it at Disneyland with any number of people dressed in animal costumes, scaring children and meandering around suspiciously. This is a prescribed structure inbuilt into our perception, so you may not realize it, but you do it all the time. Part of the reason we have such companionship with certain animals is because of our own perception of how other minds work. The way we think other minds work is skewed by our own human perception. For instance, I would like to be friends with the chimpanzee. Why? Because they have eyes, because they're physically similar, and they even have similar mannerisms. I wouldn't want to be friends with a beetle, it doesn't have any of that. This is a flaw in our perception of the world, and it rarely gets recognised. Do you think it's weird, for instance, that we can find things like this sexy? That's a rabbit! I mean, thank God we have anthropomorphism as an explanation for that. It's the human characteristic that we're attracted to. Furthermore, pretty much every conception of aliens in history has been kind of like a human. A head, eyes, limbs, always common. Pretty much all sightings of aliens seem to be taken directly from science fiction films, most of which are anthropomorphized. This goes to show that those who claim this nonsense are not just delusional, but unimaginative. The most common and obvious example of anthropomorphism is our depiction of God. All gods seem to be represented as just really awesome human beings. So, good physique, attractive, powerful, all the things that we want to be. Something that should be even more telling here is when you notice that Western gods are white, African gods are black, and Indian gods, Indian. So were we made in the image of God, or was God made in the image of us? There's an even more unnoticed phenomenon which we're subject to. Pareidolia. The fact is that we see human characteristics in everything that we see and do. Pareidolia is a psychological construct with which we perceive entirely random things to be something significant. A common example of this is seeing someone in the dark when you can't see very well, or seeing a face in food or wood. This is a mechanism which is so intrinsic to us that we can even make sense out of a dot, and a line. Something as simple as a smiley face can cause us to ascribe all kinds of human emotions to it. The smiley face is happy, hungry, he's had a late night, he's going through an expensive divorce, he's holding in a burp. We're determined to see ourselves in everything. That means we're even more self-centered than we first thought, and we didn't even know it. Carl Sagan thought that this was a survival technique. It's hardwired into us to identify a human face. For most of us, our whole world is our social world, so it makes sense. It's part of our evolution as mammals. Once you start to notice this day to day, you'll really start to realise how egocentric we are. There's actually a deeper philosophical issue at hand here. How is it even possible to imagine being an organism which isn't you? Close your eyes and imagine for a moment what it will be like to be a bat. You're in a cave, you can sense other bats around you, you know how far off the floor you are, you can sense where your wings and legs are, but open your eyes again. Now, were you or were you not just imagining yourself upside down in a cave? You weren't actually experiencing what it's like to actually be a bat. Thomas Nagel discussed this in an essay and brought up the point that it's impossible to know what it's like to be a bat because you're not a bat. Bats use sonar, they have completely different bodies to us and tiny brains with completely different structures. So we can have absolutely no idea what it's like to experience life as a bat, or anything else for that matter. We tend to think we have a neutral perspective of the world, and although we do have these kind of abilities related to consciousness, we need to remember that really we view things from the perspective of an animal. Without meaning to sound reductionist, an animal is exactly what we are. Subscribe to my YouTube channel, because the more videos I make, the drunker I get.